Hey guys, welcome back for another lesson on Romeo and Juliet. Today we are going to be going over Act 1, Scene 2. So you guys are going to read along with me and then we're going to analyze it exactly the same way that we did Scene 1. And then after we read and analyze Scene 2, I want to go ahead and talk about puns, which should be fairly easy for you guys because we already did figurative language in the third 9 weeks. So this is going to be kind of like a review, okay? So let's go ahead. You should have your Act 1, Scene 2 print out, or you can read it on your screen and then take the notes in your notebook. However it is that you want to go ahead and annotate your book, you can do so. And then you should also have your notebook so that we can go ahead and do notes after we're done reading, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start off. Scene 2 is a lot shorter than Scene 1, so we'll fly right through this. Alright, so Scene 2, we have Capulet, we have Paris, and we have a serving man. So Capulet is going to start off and he says, "But Montague is bound as well as I, in penalty alike, and it's not hard, I think, for men so old as we to keep the peace. Of honourable reckoning are you both, and pity 'tis you lived at odds so long. But now, my lord, what say you to my suit? But saying o'er what I have said before, my child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride, ere we may think her ripe to be a bride. Younger than she our happy mother's maid, and too soon marred are those so early made. Earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she. She's the hopeful lady of my earth, but woo her, gentle Paris, get her heart. My will to her consent is but a part." And she agreed, within her scope of choice lies my consent and fair according voice. This night I hold an old accustomed feast, whereto I have invited many a guest, such as I love, and you among the store. One more, most welcome, makes my number more. At my poor house look to behold this night, earth-treading stars that make dark heaven light. Such comfort as to do lusty young men feel, when well-apparelled April on the heel of limping winter treads. Even such delight, among fresh fennel buds, shall you this night inherit at my house, here all see, and like her most whose merit most shall be, which, on more view of many mine, being one, may stand in number, though in reckoning none. Come go with me." So now Capulet is going to go ahead and talk to a serving man, and he's going to give him a list. And he says, "Go, Sirrah, trudge about, through fair Verona, find those persons out, whose names are written there, and to them say, my house, and welcome on their pleasure stay." So we're going to go ahead and stop there so I can explain what's going on. So Paris, we see Paris and we see Capulet. And Paris is kind of talking to Capulet, saying that he wants to see if he can marry his daughter Juliet. Okay, so Juliet is Capulet's daughter and Paris is kind of like, can I marry your daughter? And Capulet is saying that she's very young, so he has to kind of wait because she hasn't seen the age of 14. So if you look at the beginning of this scene, he says she has not seen the change of 14 years. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride. So we know that she's 13 and he's kind of like, if you wait 2 more years, maybe I'll let her, decide whether she wants to marry you or not. Then we see that Paris says, "Younger than she our happy mother's maid." So that means that during this time, girls were getting married at 12, 13, and that at that age they were trying to be wives, they were trying to be mothers. So it was very common to get married very young at that time, and yet Capulet is like, I don't think I'm gonna let my daughter get married that young. And then he kind of says, "Earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she." So this goes to show that Capulet's other children that he's had have not made it this far. They've passed away. And this was very common during that time because there wasn't any type of like medicine or anything along those lines. So if you were getting sick or something, that was it for you. So it was very common that people weren't making it to adulthood during this time, okay? And then at the end of that part that we just read, we see that Capulet gives a list to the serving man and he's like, "Go find the names on this list and tell them that I'm having a party." And then Capulet tells Paris, I'm inviting a lot of girls to this party. You might as well look around and, see the rest of the pretty ladies that this town has to offer. Okay, so let's see what happens with the serving man and who, gets invited to this party. Find them out whose names are written here. It is written that the shoemaker should meddle with his yard, and the tailor with his last, the fisher with his pencil, and the painter with his nets. But I am sent to find those persons whose names are here writ, and can never find what names the writing person hath here writ. I must to the learned in good time. So in that section that we just saw the serving man, we kind of realized that he's illiterate. Okay, so he's not able to read, so he's gonna have to find some sort of help to read the names on this list or on this letter that Capulet gave him. Okay, so let's see. Now we have Benvolio and Romeo who enter. Tut man, one fire burns out another's burning. One pain is lessened by another's anguish. Turn giddy and be helped by backward turning. One desperate grief cures with another's languish. Take thou some new infection to thy eye, and the rank poison of the old will die. Your plantain leaf is excellent for that. For what, I pray thee? For your broken shin. Why, Romeo, art thou mad? Not mad, but bound more than a madman is. Shut up in prison, kept without my food, whipped and tormented, and good fellow. God gie gooden, I pray, sir, can you read? I, mine own fortune in my misery. Perhaps you have learned it without book, but I pray, can you read anything you see? I, if I know the letters and the language. You say honestly, rest you merry. Stay, fellow, I can read. Signor Mardino and his wife daughters, Count Yazumi and his beauteous sisters, the lady widow of Vitruvio, Signor Placencio and his lovely niece, Mercutio and his brother Valentine, mine uncle Capulet, his wife and daughters, my fair niece Rosalind and Livia, Signor Valencio and his cousin Tybalt, Lucio and the lively Helena. A fair assembly. Whither should they come? Up. Whither? To supper? To our house. Whose house? My master's. Indeed, I should have asked thee that before. Now, I'll tell you without asking. My master is the great rich Capulet, and, if you be not of the house of Montagues, I pray come and crush a cup of wine. Rest you merry. At this same ancient feast of Capulets, sups the fair Rosaline, whom thou so loves, with all the admired beauties of Verona. Go thither, and with unattainted eye, compare her face with sun that I shall show, and I will make thee think thy swan a crow. When the devout religion of mine eye maintains such falsehood, then turns tears to fire, and these, who often drowned, could never die. Transparent heretics be burnt for liars. One fairer than my love, the all-seeing sun, nor saw her match since first the world begun. Till you saw her fair, none else being by, herself poised with herself in either eye. But in that crystal scales let there be weighed your lady's love against some other maid, that I will show you, shining at this feast. And she shall scant show well that now seems best. I'll go along, no such sight to be shown, but to rejoice in splendor of mine own. So let's go ahead and analyze this second part of scene 2. So yes, we see that Romeo and Benvolio are going to be the ones to help the serving man read this list, and the list kind of tells him, the people that he wanted to be invited to his party, to Capulet's party, okay? We do see that Romeo is still very miserable. He talks about how, his heart is broken and all of these things. But even with him being miserable and sad, he says, okay, don't worry, I'm going to go ahead and read this list for you. Then we notice that the serving man says, if you are not part of the Montague family, you are allowed to come to this party. So we know that they've invited basically anyone except the Montague. So we see that the feud between them is still going on. We also find out who Romeo loves. And a lot of you were assuming that it was Juliet. He does not love Juliet. He has not met Juliet yet. So he loves someone called Rosaline. And Rosaline is on the list of the party. So now Benvolio's like, we need to go to this party. You need to see all the other ladies and you need to compare them to this Rosaline girl and see, if you really do love this girl. Now I want you to keep in mind that Romeo has not talked to this girl, okay? So he kind of is in love with her because of her looks. So we need to think, is Romeo in lust or is he in love? he has not talked to this girl, so you know, it's really hard to predict, does he love her because of her personality or whatnot, okay? But Romeo does agree to join Benvolio, and I guess in scene 3 we're gonna find out more about this party, okay? So that is Act 1, Scene 2, very short and very simple to read. Now we are going to go ahead and talk about puns, okay? All right, guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and go over our lesson about puns for today. I am going to be posting a PowerPoint on this on Tuesday, so make sure you go into my help hour so that we can review the lesson, and then you'll be able to see the PowerPoint then, okay? Just in case you can't see this, you will get a PowerPoint. But if you can't see this and you want to take notes in your notebook before the review of the lesson, you may. Just make sure that you're writing it just like this with your standard and then your lesson right under it, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and unpack our standard for today, which should be fairly easy because we've done this standard before. We did this right at the end of the 3rd 9 weeks. So this is, I think this might have been like the last, if not the second to last test that we did before we left the school, okay? So it is on figurative language. So it says, demonstrate understanding of figurative language, word relationships, and nuances in word meanings. So we know that demonstrate means to show, so we need to show that we understand what figurative language is, the word relationships that we are seeing, and the different expressions in word meanings, okay? So for today, we're going to be learning about puns. Puns are going to be a play on words. It's kind of like a joke. We've reviewed this before our figurative language test, so this is just a review, but there's going to be a lot of them in Romeo and Juliet. So for this chapter, we're going to be doing a little worksheet on puns, okay? So, like I said, it's just a play on words with different meanings that the word can possibly have, okay? Sometimes it can be very humorous, and that's mainly the reason why we see a lot of authors use puns, because it kind of makes the story a little bit more interesting to read, okay? So, an example that I gave you time flies like an arrow. We also have fruit flies like a banana. Now, depending on how you read the second sentence, it can be a little tricky, okay? Are we talking about the fruit flying, or are we talking about fruit flies as an insect? Okay, so that's going to be our pun. We have the words flies and we have the words like. And the play on words here is to show the different meanings between words. We have the word flies. It can either mean the action, so time is actually flying like an arrow, okay, that means it goes by very fast, or it can mean the insect. Fruit flies like a banana. So that means the insect, the fruit fly, likes to eat bananas, okay? So usually when the insect is on different fruits, we don't eat them because they're infected. So fruit flies usually like bananas, okay? Then we have the word like. It can be similar or it can mean a preference. So in the first one, they're using time flies like an arrow. That means it is similar to an arrow flying and shooting out. Time is flying just like that arrow. Then we have like being a preference, like this one. Fruit flies like a banana. That means they like a banana over an apple, let's say, okay? So that is a preference. Like can be similar, like can be a preference, just like flies can be an action or flies can be an insect, okay? So your job for today is, after you review this lesson, I'm going to give you a couple examples of puns, and you're going to tell me, so it would look like this. These are going to be the examples that I'm giving you. Then you need to tell me what words are being used for the puns, and then you need to explain the puns. The same way that I did here, you're going to do it with several examples, okay? And that is the lesson for today. We read Act 1, Scene 2, and we went over some puns, and now it is your turn to practice. So make sure you join my help sessions on Tuesday, I believe. Tuesday at 9 to 9:50. I'm gonna go ahead and review the lesson, and I'm also going to review Act 1, Scene 2. So I'll see you then.